Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Shattered. This movie tells the story of a rich divorcee who is security obsessed, falls in love with a mysterious woman. Where his ex-wife and his child eventually gets trapped, a desperate fight for survival will most likely ensue. Who is this mysterious woman? Can he save his family and be reunited again? Let's find out in Shattered.
Well, who'd you kill?
Shattered begins by showing a man named Chris Decker, who is on a video call with his ex-wife, Jamie. Chris is a tech millionaire who is security obsessed. Through the video call, Jamie asked about their divorce papers, which until now had not been signed by Chris. The reason why he hasn't signed the divorce papers yet is because Chris is still hoping to get back together with Jamie. However, Jamie, who realizes that the cause of their divorce is because Chris is very busy with his work, still insists on getting a divorce from Chris because Jamie thinks that Chris is more concerned with his work than his family. Chris and Jamie have a daughter named Willow, of whom Jamie has full custody to care for and raise their little daughter. That night, Chris went to a shopping center not far from where he lived. When Chris was about to buy a cup of coffee, he saw a young woman who seemed confused about the wine on the shelf in front of her. The young woman then turned to Chris, called him to come closer and asked to help choose a bottle of the best quality wine. Chris was happy to help the young woman, and had a quick chat with the young woman who introduced herself as Sky. After that, when Chris was about to leave the shopping center, he saw Sky standing outside the door. When Chris approached her, Sky told Chris that the online taxi she had ordered was suddenly canceled by the driver, and now she is having a hard time ordering a taxi. Hearing this, Chris felt sorry for her, and offered to give Sky a ride so she could go home safely. Not long after, they finally arrived at a motel, where Sky and her friend, Lisa, were staying for a while. However, upon arrival, Sky reveals to Chris that she just had a big fight with Lisa, so she doesn't feel comfortable going back there now that Lisa is probably still mad at her. Chris seems concerned about the problems Sky is facing. Chris then invites Sky to his house, so that she can spend the night there and promises to take Sky home whenever Sky wants to come home later. Arriving at Chris' house, Sky was amazed by the luxury and sophistication of the security system in his house. The two of them then engaged in casual conversation while enjoying a glass of wine to build intimacy with each other. Chris was so fascinated by Sky's beauty, and their conversation turned more intimate, where they then kissed and spent the night cuddling in bed. The next morning, Chris woke up and realized Sky had left his house. Meanwhile, Sky, who had just returned to the motel, was again involved in an argument with Lisa, where Lisa was furious because Sky was reluctant to pay the room rent, which should have been split in half. Because so far, only Lisa has paid the rent in full, so she assumes that it's her room and asks Sky to pack her things then leave. Chris then spent the afternoon lamenting his divorce from Jamie, and also his deepest longing for their daughter Willow, where Chris is still displaying the picture that Willow painted before moving with his ex-wife. In the evening, Chris tries to cheer himself up by getting out of the house, getting some fresh air, and decides to meet Sky at work. Sky works as a bartender at a local bar. Seeing Chris come to the bar where she worked just to see her, Sky was flattered. Chris waited for Sky to finish her work day, and the two of them then took a stroll enjoying the city at night. After getting to know Sky closely, Chris finds out that Sky is an orphan and lives in an orphanage. Sky has no family or close relatives. Chris feels even more sorry when he finds out that Sky has only lived alone all this time. When they arrived at Chris' car, which was parked in a deserted courtyard, the two of them caught sight of a man who was about to break into Chris' car door. Chris warned the man, trying to take the path of peace. But the man instead attacked Chris, breaking his leg, before running away from there. After the incident, Chris had to sit in a wheelchair because he was temporarily paralyzed. Seeing Chris, who seemed to be having a hard time doing activities with his current condition, Sky also offered to take care of Chris until he completely recovered and returned to normal activities. Chris seems to have really fallen in love with Sky. Without the slightest suspicion, he then gave Sky his house security code, so that Sky could come visit Chris and enter his house whenever she wanted. After that, Sky returns to the motel where Lisa lives and meets the motel owner, a man named Ronald. Sky's arrival this time apparently wanted to pack up her things, because she intended to stay at Chris' house. However, Lisa nagged her again because she just came and went, rarely gave news, and never seemed to think of her as a friend. Not long after, Sky finally returned to Chris' house, and told him that from now on, she would be staying at Chris' house. Patiently and attentively, Sky took care of Chris, who had difficulty moving due to his condition. Chris also began to wish to have a serious relationship with Sky, and maybe he could move on from his ex-wife who prefers to divorce from him. Meanwhile elsewhere, Ronald knocks on Lisa's door, calling her name, wanting to collect the room rent. However, after knocking on the door for a while and getting no answer, Ronald took the initiative to open the room, which turned out to be unlocked. Not finding Lisa in the room, Ronald then went to the bathroom and was very surprised to see Lisa lying lifeless in the bathtub. Ronald immediately reported the incident to the police and told the police that Lisa might have decided to end her life because she was depressed after her friend Sky chose to leave her. The police then tried to investigate Sky, but couldn't find any clues because it turned out that Sky had disguised her true identity. Turning to Chris' house, Sky secretly stole Chris' cell phone while he was still asleep. When Chris woke up, he looked confused because he couldn't find his cell phone anywhere. However, Chris had no suspicions of Sky at all and assumed that he just forgot to put his phone somewhere. Not long after, Jamie suddenly contacted Chris via video call. She looked worried when she asked how Chris was doing and intended to visit Chris with their daughter over the weekend. After talking to Jamie, Chris then walked into the living room and turned on the television, where Chris saw the news of the death of Lisa. Chris, who was still shocked by Lisa's sudden death, was then surprised by the appearance of Sky, who had just come home from shopping. Chris then told Sky the news about Lisa's death, but Sky seemed indifferent and instead enjoyed eating the fried chicken she just bought. When Chris suggested that Sky contact the police and testify about Lisa so that the police could investigate the case of her death, Chris was surprised by Sky's statement that she was the one who killed Lisa. Hearing Sky's confession, Chris immediately felt shocked and didn't want to believe it, so Chris asked Sky once again if she had really killed his own best friend. Sky did not deny this at all, or make excuses in self-defense. Sky then reveals that she was forced to kill Lisa because she was always nagging her. However, Sky doesn't deny that being friends with Lisa really helps her, because the room that Lisa rents has the best spot to keep an eye on Chris' house. As it turned out, Sky had been watching Chris for the past month through the motel room that Lisa had rented. Sky spied on all Chris' activities while at home and recorded all of his schedules. Sky even followed Chris to the supermarket and purposely approached him. All the attention and affection that Sky poured out for Chris turned out to be just a fake, because Sky only wanted to control the abundant wealth owned by Chris. After knowing all the truth, Chris immediately became angry and threw Sky away. But Sky casually took out Chris' cell phone, locked all the doors through the security system that had been connected to Chris' cell phone, and then paralyzed him until he was powerless. Elsewhere, Ronald, who intends to clean the room rented by the late Lisa, finds a telescope that has been used by Sky to spy on Chris. The telescope was still pointing at Chris' residence, but Ronald shifted the focus of the telescope, looking for a more pleasing object to the eye, and found a woman practicing yoga naked. Meanwhile, after dropping Chris, Sky then straps him in a wheelchair and covers his mouth, whereupon Sky plans to torture Chris to get his password, security code, and all of Chris' personal data that she needs to access all of Chris' bank accounts, so that Sky can take all of his property. Chris tried to keep quiet, but Sky apparently didn't play with her threats and didn't hesitate to torture Chris to get what she wanted. Ronald then directs the focus of the telescope back to Chris' residence and is very surprised to find Sky's presence at Chris's house, because Sky is currently the most wanted person in town because of her involvement with Lisa. Ronald saw Chris sitting in a wheelchair and thought that Sky was just taking care of Chris, who was paralyzed. Meanwhile, Sky, who had already gained access to one of Chris' personal accounts, seemed very happy when she transferred all the funds from Chris's account to her personal account. However, Sky's greed did not end there. Sky did not hesitate to threaten Chris and torture him so that Chris would be willing to do a Zoom meeting with several related parties to fund a company that was just started by Sky using funds from Chris' personal account. When Sky untied Chris' hands, he did not waste the opportunity to strangle Sky, hoping to bring her down. But due to his badly injured condition, Chris was unable to fight Sky and instead ended up being stabbed by her. An enraged Sky then shows a video of Willow and Jamie playing in the park and threatens to hurt them if Chris persists in silence and disobeys her request. Not wanting to jeopardize Jamie and Willow's safety, Chris was finally forced to do all of Sky's orders. After that, Sky disables the communication system at Chris' house, takes pictures of several high-value paintings and expensive furniture in the house, and intends to sell Chris' house. Sky then went out of the house to finish some business. On the other hand, Ronald seems to be walking towards Chris's residence, searching for Sky. Chris, who saw Ronald's arrival through the CCTV camera monitor screen, then tried to scream even though his mouth was gagged, so that Ronald could help him. Ronald then breaks the glass to enter the house, which of course Sky finds out through a notification on Chris' cell phone. After going inside and seeing Chris tied up, instead of saving Chris, Ronald instead attracted to the painting in Chris' house. After removing the duct tape covering Chris' mouth, Ronald then demanded a large sum of money from Chris before agreeing to untie him. Chris immediately agreed. He will give anything to be free from the psychopathic Sky. However, when Ronald untied Chris' body, Sky returned to the house, so Ronald decided to run away. Before he could run out of the house, Sky first caught Ronald and threatened him. Ronald then tried to escape by going upstairs, but Sky, with her psychopathic face and smile, chased the frightened Ronald casually, through room after room, and monitored Chris' whereabouts via Chris' cell phone. Meanwhile, Chris tries to untie the bonds that have been loosened by Ronald. With great difficulty, Chris tried to stand up and fled to his car. But when Chris forced open the car door, the car alarm went off, so Chris immediately left before attracting the attention of Sky, who was probably engrossed in torturing Ronald upstairs. Outside the house, Chris finds a motor ski and tries to escape by riding it. However, an incident occurred when Chris lost his balance and rolled over to the side of the road. At the same time, a car passed not far from there. Seeing Chris, who was injured, the man driving the car rushed down and helped Chris into his car and quickly left from there. Chris asked the man to call the police. But apparently, the man named Sebastian actually brought Chris back to his residence and then beat Chris. Chris is completely helpless when Sebastian and Sky take him back into the house, where Chris finally learns that Sebastian is Sky's stepfather and has conspired with her to plan all of this. That night, Sky and Sebastian cut off a finger on Chris' right hand, so they could use Chris' fingerprints to access Chris' last account, which is believed to be in the millions of dollars. The next day, Jamie and Willow were seen arriving at Chris' residence. Willow rushed in and looked for her father because she missed him, while Jamie, who followed behind, realized that something had happened when she saw the messy state of the house and the blood on the floor. Jamie immediately called Willow and met with Sky, who claimed that she was Chris' nurse. Not long after, Sebastian shows up, and they both threaten Jamie and Willow and take them to the warehouse where Chris has been locked up for so long. Chris was so relieved to know Jamie and their daughter were okay, because he was so afraid that Sky had hurt them. Chris also told what happened to Jamie. When Sky and Sebastian go to the bank to drain funds from Chris' personal account, Chris finds a way to escape from there and is forced to ask Willow down the vent to go outside and open the door to the barn. Meanwhile, Sky and Sebastian, who were at the bank, managed to convince the bank officer to open Chris' safe. However, how shocked they were when they found out that the ownership of the account had actually been transferred to Jamie's, not long after Jamie and Chris filed their divorce. Sky and Sebastian rushed back to the house to urge Jamie to provide the account access code. At the same time, Willow manages to reach the front door and re-enters the house to free her parents. Sebastian then rushes to the storage shed and finds that the warehouse is empty. He then searched every room to look for Chris and Jamie, but was knocked down by Chris, who was hiding in the closet at that time. When the two get into a fight, Sebastian can easily incapacitate Chris until he falls to the floor. Sebastian then orders Sky to shoot Chris, because all they need now is Jamie. But Sky looks doubtful, and instead shoots Sebastian, killing him. Taking advantage of Sky's distracted attention, Chris then attacks Sky and manages to get his phone back. Chris then hid somewhere, called the police and tried to scare Sky, then caught her off guard with a security feature that can be controlled with his cell phone. After realizing that Sky was starting to let her guard down, Chris attacked her again, trying to knock her down. However, with all the wounds on his body, Chris seemed to have a hard time beating Sky, who seemed to have special physical strength. Jamie then arrives to help Chris, but she can easily be paralyzed by Sky by injuring her leg. Chris and Jamie began to be overwhelmed by Sky, who attacked them blindly, until finally, when Sky was about to kill Chris and Jamie, suddenly a gunshot sounded, and Sky finally fell. It turned out that the shot came from Willow, who managed to save her parents from death. Jamie scrambled to her feet and hugged her daughter tightly. Not long after, the police arrived there. Chris and his family were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief because they managed to survive all the nightmares. The film ends with Sky dying and tells Chris her real name, Margaret. Through this film, we can learn not to trust strangers we just met, even though that person is a beautiful woman with a sexy body and has a smile and facial expression like an innocent angel. But who would have thought that she could be a psychopath who is willing to torture and kill just so that she can wallow in wealth?